Hello, family, and welcome to 54 Days of Roses, a Catholic podcast dedicated to the miraculous 54-day Rosary Novena. I'm your host, Maritza Mendez. Today, we have a beautiful discussion with Marce Palos from Amares Conferencias. We talk about the meaning of vocation, religious life, marriage, and the period of singleness. I hope you enjoy. Hello, family, and welcome to 54 Days of Roses. I'm your host, Maritza Mendez, and today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Marce Palos, and she's my spiritual director. She has a podcast called Amares Conferencias and recently has a documentary on Amazon Prime. So welcome, Marce.
Hello, Maritza. Thank you very much for having me here in your podcast. It's really an honor to be here and sharing with all your audience like a nice conversation, a nice reflection about many issues that are out there.
Well, thank you, Marce, for joining us today. We actually met about 2 years ago, this time around February of 2022, I believe. And we met while I was on vacation. I had just recently moved down to San Diego County, and I was just like head down working. And at the time, I remember it was like Christmas time, and I said, I need to take a little trip. So went down to Puerto Vallarta, and as I was at the beach laying out, I was binging on your podcast. I have never just went after an episode, but I listened to your whole series. And I said, oh my God, I love this woman. I need to talk to her. She needs to become my Catholic spiritual director. How do I do this? So I messaged my friend Mocha, and she said, I actually know her. She gives me your WhatsApp number. And just yesterday, I checked when was the first time I messaged you, and it was February of 2022.
Oh, that's a long time ago. But it really time flies. Yeah, it's. I think it's very beautiful how God sometimes unite people, and how we get to know, beautiful people. Because it has been a beautiful pleasure for me to join you in your own journey of what you are learning, how you're growing, and how you're now maybe having a mature faith. And I think that's something so beautiful that I really enjoy to see and to be part of people's life. So thank you very much, Marisa, for listening to the podcast Amares Conferencias. You can find it in Spotify and all the different platforms. So I think it's very funny when you are maybe doing something and you don't know whose heart is gonna touch, but then when that happened, it's not funny anymore because it's something serious. Your words are touching other people, and that has an impact in somebody's life. So that's very beautiful.
So one of the reasons why I reached out to you, or I was seeking guidance at the time, was because, as you said, you don't know how your words can touch other people, right? And with the podcast, I just kind of wanted to align myself with my faith, but not only just for myself, but I wanted to I want to learn so that I can, that little bit of knowledge that you kind of passed down to me, that I can pass it on to the people who are listening, right? And you have helped me so much in my spiritual growth. And one of the things that we've done, or that I've done, is I have reached out to you before the start of every season. Well, with the exceptions of the first ones, but for the most part, I have reached out to you, and we talk about the intention, and Marce, what do you think? And then, I just learned so much. So this time around, about 2 weeks ago, we had our session about the intention for season 10. And the intention for season 10 is to pray for our vocation. So when I called you and we had our session, it was just so lovely to learn what it actually means in the context of Catholicism, right? What it means to us Catholic versus, most of the time we just have or at least I have the interpretation that just vocation is just my career, right? Like what I do for a living. That's it. I would love if you can share, what vocation really means to us Catholics.
Like it's easy when you go even just for the meaning of the word vocation, that it comes from Latin. We speak Spanish, both of us, so it's easier and understanding, because vocation, even in English, comes from Latin. So vocation, vocación in Spanish, comes from vocal, and that's a call. So basically, when you're talking about vocation, is something that you are called to do. Call Somebody's calling you to do something, and that's something very beautiful, because you don't like made up out of blue. Of course, in your heart, God has put in different dreams. Sometimes we think that those are our dreams, but sometimes it's like we mix those dreams with our selfishness or with certain visions that we have, and then it's when they got twisted. But God has planted in our heart several desires that are beautiful, and where we are trying to look for them, and we like truly purify them, it's a way to find that vocation, right? So vocation, it's a call, but this call, it has a specific way, because as you said, it's not only a career. I will say more like a career, or like what you're doing is more like a mission.
Mhm.
Like okay, is a specific task that you have in this period of your life. Maybe right now you're working as an accounting, or you are working as an engineer. Okay, that's great. That's a mission that you have right now. But that's not a vocation itself, because vocation, it also give you identity. All of us, every one of us, we are children of God. That's our first identity. Everyone is a beloved children of God, beloved daughter of God, beloved son of God. That's what we are. However, God wants to marry us because he loves us very much. So there is two ways to get married with God. And these are the vocations, the way that you're gonna get married with God. So you can do it, you can get married with God without intermediary, or with intermediary. So when you are getting directly with God, that's priesthood, or any consecration, religious life. And when there is an intermediary, then it's marriage. You are getting married with God through someone else. You know, like if you're already a married person, you are married to God through your spouse. The religious person, the consecrated or person, nun or a priest, they are directly married to God. They don't have anyone through they are getting married to God. So this is a vocation, basically, because a vocation is a call to be saint, to be holy. And the two ways that you can do it is through marriage or through consecrated life. And it's beautiful because in both vocations there is a call, another vocation, that is love. You are called to
Mhm.
love in these two vocations. And love, this is a important part, because sometimes we have so many mistaken concepts of what love is. And sometimes we think that love is a feeling, or love is just have as much pleasure as I can, or just having these butterflies in my tummy. But it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with that, because love is to looking the greater good for the other one. That's what love is. So when I'm looking the greater love, the greater good for somebody else, that means that I will need to sacrifice, that I will need to renounce to many things, that I will need to work, like do extra work, that I will need to compromise to that person, to respect that person, to really be committed to that person. So that's why it's a vocation, because God is calling you, for example, in the marriage vocation, God is calling you to love that person whom you are marrying because you are loving him through that person. You are loving God by loving this person. And in the priesthood or in a non consecrated person, they are loving God by giving themselves to the church, to the people that they need to instruct or serve, right? So that's a vocation,
That's
right?
beautiful.
Dear Maritza.
Thank you, Marce.
Yeah.
What about during the period of singleness, right? What can you explain a little bit about our vocation during that period?
This is very interesting because some theologians will say that there is like a third vocation to be single. Some of the theologians will say, like, no, to be single is not a vocation, it's just a temporal state, which is true. However, there are some people that, they never get married. And what they are doing is beautiful, like beautiful, because they can serve like more open without limitations, because when you get married you have a commitment with your husband and with your kids, with your family, so maybe you cannot be as available to serve in the church, to go to missions, to do many other things than a single woman or a single man will be able to do so. So they have more freedom. I would say it in this way, like they are more available to do other things that a priest or a married person cannot do, because they already has this commitment with a parish, for example, a priest, or with their family, a married person. So being single, sometimes we are a little bit, how to say it, especially within Catholics, like this is the worst thing that can happen to you. But it's not like that, because it's a beautiful opportunity. If that's not your call, if you really feel like, no, I'm called to be married, that's perfect. But during the single period of your life, it's beautiful because you can mature, you can grow, you can serve in a more available way than other people because they are already committed into their vocation. So I think it's a great chance for the people to really grow in many ways, but it's specifically in loving better, in
Mm.
purifying their own heart from their own selfishness, and be able to serve others with this freedom, with this availability that maybe a husband, a wife, a priest, a nun, they cannot because they are already committed. So I think it's a great chance when you are single, because you have tremendous amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for growing, for studying something, for making an introspection into yourself and find out things that are not right, and you can change it, and you can grow, and you can grow in love. So again, it's a great opportunity. We shouldn't diminish the fact, if you're single, if somebody that are listening, like, just take advantage, of
Yeah.
of your status.
Of this period of singleness, right? This season. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's in my heart, and I told God, like I would love my calling to be marriage, but during this time, as when that time happens, um, He put it in my heart to start this podcast, right? And
Yeah.
to, and I don't think I would have if I was married. I don't. I don't know if I would have as much time as I do to put into this project now, because it really takes many hours as if I had like another full-time job as well, right? So so I'm just super grateful that he did put this in my heart to say like, um, one of the gifts that he's given me that I acknowledge that is a gift is to be resourceful and to just try to figure out, okay, well, this is how you put a podcast together. This is how you do certain things, right? So I just literally went on YouTube, figured out how to make a podcast, researched about the novena, and now we're going on our 10th season. So I'm super excited for that. But I think that God has little by little put this in my heart, and I have been telling him, but I want to get married. Right. But until then, I think that this is the way that I grow in love. I think the podcast has like really guided me more towards my faith, towards God, has softened my heart a lot more. Well, you remember.
Yeah. You know what happens sometimes, my dear? I think sometimes when we are a little bit desperate, when you are single and you're in your 30s or even in the late 20s, and you start seeing all your friends getting married, and everybody is already, in a or with engagement or something like that, and you're single, and maybe you're even breaking up a relationship or in a toxic relationship, and you don't see any, when we're going to go to the next level, and you're never seeing close enough, you start getting some anxiety, and you start experiencing like frustration, and then you feel in yourself, because I have hear it from many women, and myself I experienced as well. You feel like you are ready. Why is not happening? I feel
Hmm.
so ready. Like I already have this degree. I already reached these goals in my life. I already been successful in this part of my life. Why it doesn't happen? Why I'm not married yet when I feel I'm ready? What's going on? What's going on? So I think it's because we are not ready.
Mm.
God is very good, and I never challenge him in his wisdom because he knows better than we do. And sometimes maybe we can like be obsessed with certain things. And sometimes we really want something, we want to grab it, like, oh, if you're not giving it to me, I will grab it. But when we do that, then things turns out in ways that shouldn't be. And maybe we ended up with a broken heart, with a divorce, with a difficulties, because maybe I was a little bit grabbing a vocation that it was not mine. It
Mm.
was not calling me, but I was so obsessed that I wanted it happened, and I make it up. And yes, it did happen, but then it comes these other like hurtful situations or painful situations. However, and this is the beautiful part, that even though when we make bad choices and we obsess with something and we want to do our will, not God's will, but our will,
Hmm.
and that's something that all humans we have experienced in some point of our lives, even though in those bad choices, God wants you to learn something. And
Mm.
everything, God is like the best in recycling things. For God, there is nothing that is a waste or a trash in your life. Like, oh, oh man, you did this bad. Oh, I don't know what to do with you. Oh, no, this part of your life, it's impossible to remake it. No, for God, He can recycle everything. So even though those obsessions, those bad choices that we make because we want to do our will, even in those moments, he recycled that to to make it a learning experience so that you can grow in love, that you can grow in wisdom, that you can grow in loving him and abandon yourself to his will and not to your own. It's like with little kids, when you have little kids and
Right.
they are like, no, 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 I want to do it, like because when they are little and they start experience the world, they can do everything by themselves, but they cannot. And you're telling the kid no because you're gonna hurt you, it's gonna be a boo-boo or something is gonna happen and so, but the kid is like obsessive, like, no, I want to cut the apple or whatever. And then when finally happened that they find out that they cannot do it or they hurt themselves, then they learn.
Right.
So it's the same thing with us. Everything is a learning experience. So the only thing we need to do is to be really in the track of let us to abandoning in God's will, in God's arms.
So we decided on vocation to be the theme for season 10. And the reason for this was because we get tons of emails from our family here on the podcast. For those who are discerning a religious life, a lot of people are asking for prayers for their marriage, but we get a lot of emails from men and women who are in this period, as you're saying, of singleness, who they want to get married, they want to find someone, right? And they're, oh, but I prayed the novena, I prayed it 5 times. And it's like, well, I have to tell you, the novena is not a magic wand. It's not a genie in a bottle. The novena is to, meditate on the life of Jesus, to grow in love and devotion to him, right? And of course, we tell him what our desire is. It's my desire, obviously, to like, I want to get married. But ultimately, like, he's either going to tell us, yes, not yet, or maybe no, right? So, like, we have to, one of the things that I've learned is like, we have to like listen to his will. So the novena is like, hey, like, I'm presenting my petition to you. I'm growing in love and devotion with you. I'm growing closer to you, but ultimately, I surrender my heart to you, right? And your will be done. Yeah.
Exactly. It's Christ himself, and he is God. He surrendered to the Father's will. And in the cross, he was saying, Heavenly Father, I don't want this. I don't want to go through this chalice, but if it's your will, let's do it. So sometimes be single, it can be a cross for many people, and they feel like a burden, like something that is really,
Mm-hmm.
really hurting, right? But I will like to talk, with my heart and really really open. Sometimes we idolize to be married,
Mm-hmm.
and we think that we will be super happy, that we will have a beautiful home in a beautiful neighbor. My husband or my wife, they will be the best. My kids will be the best. I will have the best job ever. My friendships will be great and everything will be perfect. But that's idealization. That's not the reality. So what really happened in reality is you get married and the fairy tales is not like, oh, a happy ending. You need to work a lot and it requires a lot of sacrifice. And maybe your husband or your wife is not going to be the best. They have flaws. They are not perfect. And then with the daily life, you will find out that sometimes you really want to take them and throw it to the window because they can exasperate you or
Right.
like there are many situations or your kids are naughty and you don't know how to behave them, and there are many situations that happen in marriage that we don't think when we are idolizing because we believe that it will be the best. What if not? And maybe God is protecting you from going through a divorce, from really having a marriage that is not what should be. I all the time said, and I said with profound knowledge because I went through the same thing. I was engaged 4 years ago, and I was very excited. I was very in love with this man, and I really want to get married. Um, but before the marriage happened, I find out that the man whom I was engaged, he has a big, big problem with jealousy in
Mm.
a even in a medical level, with jealousy. So I could continue with the wedding and get married and everything, but I knew in my heart that if I decide for that one, it would be a nightmare and a hell. And marriage is not supposed to be a hell. It's supposed to be a stairs to heaven. So
Yeah.
marriage supposed to be a stairs to heaven, but if you get obsessed with something or you get obsessed with getting married and you do get married with somebody that it's not for you and God is not calling you for that marriage, it can be a shortcut to hell and not a stairs to heaven,
Hmm.
you know? So this is a interesting part, and people we need to be aware of that and do not idolize something, and knowing our own limits,
Right.
you know, and knowing like, I couldn't be married with a jealous man. It would be, horrible, totally a hell for me. So we need to know, and also what I can offer to the other person, because I'm not perfect either. Not
Hmm.
only the other one is not perfect, I'm not perfect either. I have so many flaws, and I need to find also somebody who will be able to handle my flaws. I all the time receive, and I give this advice because I received it when exactly back then when I was about to get married, and my parish priest mother told me something very, very clever. And she said, you know, look for the flaws, not for the
Mm.
virtues, because everybody can live with the virtues of the other person.
Hmm.
But can you live with the flaws that he has?
Mm.
Can he live with the flaws that you have? Because that's the important part. Because those are gonna come out, in any second, and then you will want to run away from that. No, you cannot run away because you're married. It's not as responsible as well. Like right now, the vision of marriage is like, oh, if it's not work, then we get divorced and that's it. No, no, you cannot do that because you became one flesh. And if you get a divorce, is reaping that flesh. So you're gonna end up destroy and the other person as well.
Hmm.
So that's why it's important to see if God is calling me to that. And
Mm.
something that is important too, you're not gonna find never ever the perfect man, neither the perfect woman. That doesn't exist. You need to work with what it is out there. Once I was talking with a priest, about my own struggles by being single, and he goes and he saw me and he was like, Marce, if you want the perfect man, you will need to go to the santoral, to the to the calendar for the saints, and maybe pick one of these saints. But by the way, they are dead already. So I don't know. Good luck with that. So you need to understand that there is anyone who's going to be perfect. So that's why it's important to be objective and say,
Hmm.
okay, with these flaws of the person and with these flaws that I have, yes, we can survive, and with God's grace. But maybe with these other flaws, I cannot. So when you're getting to know somebody and you start dating and you start, going out there, it's very nice to have clear what do you want
Hmm.
and what you can offer to. Not only what I want, but what I can offer to. And be aware of the flaws of the other one, but be aware of yours.
Hmm.
can those flaws can get along?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's very important, my dear friend.
No, that's great advice. Really something to think about, and as you said, like not only think about the flaws of the other person, but really spend time thinking about our own personal flaws, right? Because we have many, and we often don't oversee that and
Yeah.
just point it out, project it towards the other person. Um, Marce, one of the things that I learned from you was that I don't know if this is part of my vocation, but like one of the things that you have helped me grow in is that I used to tell you, like, I feel like I am a different Maritza in different scenarios, right? Like, I am Maritza with family, with work, with friends, Maritza with a podcast, and then like my own person, like my own relationship with God, right? So, one of the things that I have learned from you is to kind of like bring who I truly am, and who I truly am is una hija amadísima de Dios, a beloved daughter of God. And no matter where I am in situations, no matter where I stand, like this is who I am, right? So this is one of the most beautiful things that I have learned in my growth, in my process with you. Um, what are some of the ways that what can people do when either they're discerning their vocation or they're feeling this way that they are kind of, you know, maybe lost in who they think they are, right?
Yeah. But this is a beautiful, beautiful question and a beautiful process as you already experienced.
Yeah.
You know, when you are aware, and what you said is very important because sometimes people we are not aware that we are behaving differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we for some reason we are not current with who I know I am or what I want to be. You know, because sometimes it's like I have a beautiful person like you that I'm honored to join them in the journey, their process. And
Thank you.
sometimes they are not aware that who I am. I'm this beloved daughter or son of God. But for some reason, I cannot live it because maybe I haven't truly believed it. Sometimes my past, what I have done in the past, are like an obstacle that is saying me like, how come, how can I be called daughter of God or son of God when I already go through all these horrible things and I did this horrible stuff? Well, this is very important for everybody who is listening. No matter what happened in your life, doesn't matter what you go through, God love God never stop loving you. Never, ever, ever. And
Mm-hmm.
you never lose your identity as a children of God. Doesn't matter. So that's the first thing. Knowing that your past does not define you. Yeah, it's part of your life. It's part of your story. It's constructing your personality. It's constructing many parts of you, but it's not defining you. Because sometimes we believe that, oh, what I did is what I am, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I'm identifying that as my identity, and that's not true. So this is the first thing to like not putting together the past with my identity. You have never lose your identity as a son of God or daughter of God, even though whatever you go through. It's important to go to confession. It's important to have a growing, of course, going to communion and receive the sacraments because that's the source in order to let us to fill up from God's love. I think the great challenge, my dear Marisa, right now is that the people allow themselves to love by God because we're not allowing Him to love us. We feel that we're not worth it, or we feel like, oh no, even we don't believe in God, you know. So, but when we allow him to love us and that he fulfill ourselves, then I can give to the other ones.
Mm.
If I'm empty, if I'm not allowing God to love me, what I'm going to give to the other ones? I have nothing to give.
Right, right.
So if that's what happened to you, maybe when you were into this process, you were in this ambience, you were with your co-workers, and maybe you were empty, you have nothing to give. So you were like wearing a mask and you were like acting up with certain, character. And the same thing in the other ambiences with friends, with family, because you were just repeating what you were doing in the past,
Exactly.
right? Because it worked, it was functional.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it's the best for the person. But when the person realizes that, oh, you know what, I'm a beloved daughter of God, I'm a beloved son of God, and then you allow yourself to fill up your heart from His love, then you have something to give to the other ones.
Right.
And then you can go and this identity, you start living the identity. Normally I said in Spanish, si vas a misa, que se te note. If you go to mass, show it, let me know that you really go to mass. Let me know that you are letting yourself to fill up your heart from God's love. Because if you're going to mass, but you keep doing or being the same person, that doesn't make sense. Normally the mass is an encounter, a personal encounter with Christ, and He changed your life, and you are not the same person. St. Paul, he in all the letters when he's writing, in many moments he's saying like, it's not me anymore, it's Christ who live in me, because Christ literally like shocked him and recently we had the feast of the conversion of St. Paul, because literally he fall from the horse, and he get up being a new person because he has an encounter with Christ. So anyone who has a true encounter with Christ cannot be the same, because you
Mm-hmm.
experience that. You experience, if you see in all the moments in the Bible, the different miracles when he was encountering different people, these people, they couldn't be the same after meeting with him. So it's the same thing for us. And when I have this encounter, because I cannot continue behaving the same way that I was behaving before, it goes this change. And of course, you're gonna change not only with your coworkers, not only with your family, with everyone, in order to unify the behavior, and you're gonna behave the same, with the same thinking, with your same values, with your same principles, because now you know who you are. But when you
Right.
don't know who you are, you will be, I don't know the word in English, like a veleta, you know, like something that is moving with the wind,
Like a cell
you
shift.
know. Say it again.
Is it a cell shift? I don't know Valletta in
Yeah,
Spanish.
una
Okay.
veleta. Uh-huh. So, because you don't know who you are. So, with some friends,
Just,
you're going to reflect them in order to fit with them.
mm,
You're going to do whatever they do. And with your coworkers, in order to fit or in order to be the authority, maybe you're going to be authoritarian or like a dictator. So depending in where the ambience you're going to be, you're going to reflect the ambience because you
right.
have no identity.
Right.
But if you know who you are, you're not gonna reflect no one but God, and you're supposed to reflect God.
Exactly. So when you don't know who you are, right, that you're a beloved child of God, it's you're put into these situations where you're just trying to please the other person or trying to please the situation there. So you become
So you
that
become
scenario, right? You
that
become that frequency
Yes.
versus like having the frequency of like God, the love of
Yeah.
God. And then that you project it out wherever it is that you go, right? You
Yeah.
project it out in your vocation, right? So how important is that when we live at our vocation? How does that contribute to like our community and to into the church?
That's a very, very beautiful question. And yesterday I had a consultant. It's a couple. It's a very nice couple. I like them very much. They are married for 20 something years. And we were talking about this. I'm gonna be very maybe descriptive with this, okay?
Okay.
And I will go with marriage vocation first, right? Marriage is a domestic church. That's what we know about what is matrimony, what is marriage giving to the society, because it's becoming uh, a domestic church where you are giving experience love in a beautiful way. You know, you are beloved and accepted unconditional. And that's why it's so important. But first, the ones who need to give this love is the spouses,
Hmm.
you know. So you were saying in the last comment before we start into this conversation, you were saying like when you don't have identity, you became a pleaser for other people, right? And that's a principle of toxic relationships, because you are putting in the place that only is for God. The only person that you need to please is God.
Hmm.
That's it, right? When you became a married person, you need to, the order of your priorities is first God, then your spouse, then your kids, in that order. You cannot alter, you cannot put first your kids, then your spouse, then God. No, never works like that. So it's first God, then your spouse, then your kids. If you maintain this order, the priority, who is the center of your life, you are giving tremendous amount of order to the society. Because if all marriages living according to this priority, you won't have a godless society,
Hmm.
because you are nurturing your spouse with this and you're nurturing your kids with this, because everything is in order.
Right.
So if I'm married with God through my husband, I need to serve my husband. I need to give myself to my husband. I need to receive my husband. And the beauty of human sexuality and the beauty of the making love and sexual relationship, it makes totally sense. Because what is happening every time that the spouses are making love is basically they are renewing their vows. It's like they are updating the sacrament of matrimony, but they are not using themselves. You know, it's true love. They are giving themselves. And as I said in the beginning, love is looking the goodness for the other one, the greater goodness for the other one. That's love. So, in the beauty and the mist of the sexual act between men and women in the beautiful sacrament of marriage, they are resembling the unity of the Holy Trinity. So if you live truly according how we meant to be, how God planned it for us, what sacrament it is, in the beauty of marriage, of the sacrament of marriage, they are resembling every time that a beautiful couple, married couple, are making love, they are resembling the unity of the Holy Trinity. Plus, they are open to life, so they are co-creating with God a new life that will live forever, that will be living forever, you know. So if married couples will really following the call that they are for, then imagine all the matrimonies living according this. You won't have infidelity, you
Right.
won't have addictions, you don't have anxiety, you won't have depression, you won't have kids with so many issues and problems in their lives. And if they do, they will be able to overcome because their parents are loving them, are loving each other in a beautiful way, that they will be able to help the kids with any troubles that they are facing.
Right.
So that's why it's very important that everybody is living the vocation that they are called in the way that God planned it.
Hmm.
Because if we leave it for ourselves, because it's my wish, is what I want. I
Right.
want to get married. That's my wish. I dream with that. I don't care whom I'm getting married, but it's my wish. I want to have a great party and beautiful white dress and all these fancy stuff. And if I get obsessed with that, I'm not gonna look the great goodness for the other one. That's love, and I'm not gonna prioritize, God first, then my husband, then my kids, because it's the way I want it. But if I leave it according how God is giving, the sacrament of marriage has tremendous graces for the world, for the society, because it starts with the people who are committed in the sacrament, the spouses. Is giving them tremendous amount of graces for overcome the difficulties of life, because they are able to experience the unity of the Holy Trinity in the beautiful sacramental sexual act. And that's something that a couple who is not married cannot experience. They are not updating any sacrament. They are not renewing any vows. They are not sharing the unity of the Holy Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many graces that it comes just with a married couple who is making love,
Yeah.
plus all the other graces of how they are raising their kids, the values, the principles. And of course, if you have a strong family, you won't have crime, many other social problems that are out there, you know. And the same thing with priesthood and the consecrated life, a man who is committed to God, to serve God through the church. um, they are giving themselves totally, and they are not focusing how I'm gonna fulfill my ego or my desires, even my sexual drive, because they are literally offering up and using that energy to serve others. So, but there is this priority, God first.
Thank you, Marce. Thank you for sharing that with us. For those that are like, I know that you've helped me so much, right? What are some of the ways that people can find a spiritual director or find someone that can guide them in their faith?
This is like a struggle right now,
Yeah.
with many people, definitely, that you want, maybe you realize, or you somehow something happened in your life. It came a crisis moment, and you feel like something is not right with me.
Right.
For some reason things are not working out. Every time I'm in a relationship, the same things happens with me. We have certain patterns that we repeat, because our heart is a little broken, or is something that some wounds that there are out there, and maybe we're not aware of that until we start like experience certain consequences of our own decisions, and we see like we are taking bad decisions. Everything's a little messy. I feel confusion. I constantly feel sad. I constantly feel anxiety. In those moments, it's important to look for help, definitely, but not any help, especially if you're Catholic, because then you need to look for somebody who really will help you to go profound within your faith,
Mm-hmm.
where you're gonna truly find many answers. But not only that one, and let me put it this very clear. People like me, like I'm a consultant, a counselor. In Spanish, the word is familióloga or familiologist, because we are focused in helping the person into their different situations from this anthropology and philosophy of Christian personalism. That's what we use in order to help the other. We use this frame, this philosophical and anthropological frame of the Christian personalism. If we don't do it this way, if we don't do it in a right way, we can damage the person, because we don't heal. Let me be very clear with this. Any psychologic any psychological or psychiatric, or like me, counselor, consultant, we just prepare the person to be healed by Christ,
Okay.
you know, because he is the healer. This is very important to understand. And in this life, we will never be fully healed. We will heal a lot if we allow him to heal us, but we won't heal never totally complete, because that's on until we die and we resurrect, and then it's going to be full heal. But definitely, you can live much more better, especially by be aware that who you are, that you are a daughter of God, that you are a son of God, a beloved daughter, beloved son, right? So when you enter into this crisis, yes, you need to look for somebody who will really help you to prepare yourself to be healed by Christ in this beautiful encounter, in this beautiful personal encounter with Him. So that's why it's very important that you really look for a Catholic psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor, consultant like me, because otherwise you will lose the most important part, the spiritual part. You know, yeah, it's important that your health will be good, that you change some habits, even sometimes your diet, maybe you need to make some changes, your habits. Always important, because we need to see the person like a whole. There are
Right.
many areas of the person, and definitely we need to work in many areas. But unfortunately, many secular psychiatric or psychologists or counselors, or they are not like working in the spiritual area,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big mistake, and then can damage you, and that's not fun. you know because you came looking for help, and then you ended up with more damage, so that's not fun, right? So that's why it's very important that you be aware, like, okay, there is something going on with me and I need help. Okay, that's very good. Everybody, we need help first.
Right.
No worries. The people who are willing to go for a process like you did with me, those people, it's not that they are the only ones who has problems. Everybody we have. But those people who are willing to go, they are brave because they will be need to make work, a true work in themselves and a deep introspection to see what's going on inside. And sometimes you don't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you need to be brave, you know. So, you know, I'm there as well. If somebody is willing and wants to have a process with me, I'm totally happy to help, definitely. I'm not the only one, of course. There are more beautiful people who are willing to help people from this personalized Christian Catholic perspective, and that's very important, you know. So yes, my dear Maritzita.
So how can they find you? Where can they go to reach out to you?
They can go to Amares Conferencias. You can maybe put it somewhere there
I'll
so
list it on
people
the
will
chat.
see it. Yeah, Amares Conferencias in Instagram or Facebook, or there is a contact person. We live in Mexico, so but we can have the sessions through Zoom. So definitely there is not a problem, and the number is, I think you need to dial plus 52.
I'll leave
That's
the
a
yeah, I will
international.
leave the details. I'll list
Ah,
the
you will leave the
details.
details. That's
Yeah.
fine.
That's,
Yeah, and it will be the
okay.
phone there, so you can contact. Yeah, so
Exactly.
I don't need to worry about that. But definitely we are out there, and if somebody is willing to have a beautiful process of growing and prepare themselves to be healed by Christ, definitely I would be delighted to help. And it will be an honor for me to help in their process, like it has been for me with you, my dear Marisa.
Thank you, Marce. You helped me so much, and I'm super grateful that God put us together. And thank you
Thanks be to
for
God.
thanks be to God. Thank you, and thank you for joining us today in this show.
Hmm.
It was our first interview for 54 Days of Roses, and it just so happened that I was a little sick. I was a little sick. We're having all these, my mic wasn't connected, but we made it work. So thank you so much for being patient with us as
Thank
well.
you. No, no, no. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It has been beautiful, beautiful conversation, beautiful honor, and thank you for letting me to share, a little bit with your beautiful audience, and hoping that all these different concepts and questions that maybe you have, but other people as well, so that can touch their heart and can fulfill them with some light, you know,
Yeah.
and find out what God is calling them.
Thank you, Marce. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on today's show.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Hello, family, and thank you for listening to today's episode. If you have enjoyed the interview with Marce Palos, please share it with your friends and family. I send you my love to Jesus through Mary.